Hi guys, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to another Angular 17 tutorial, and in this part of Angular 17 tutorial series, I'm going to be talking about reactive forms. In the previous video, I talked about template driven forms, but this video, reactive forms is more important as compared to the template driven form. People opt for using reactive forms rather than template driven form most of the cases. All right, so make sure you try to practice while I am working along with it. So first of all, I've created this empty Angular 17 project. It contains nothing. You can see this is an empty app component and this is an empty HTML file for this component, and I'm running the project and it is showing nothing currently. All right, so first of all, for creating a reactive form, I'm going to show you each and everything that is going to be beneficial for you for building any kind of form based upon your requirement. All right, so let's first import few things. So here I'm going to import, first of all, I need form array from Angular forms. Then I would need form builder from Angular forms. Then I would need form group. Then I would need a reactive forms module. And then I will be needing validators, this one. All right, and I will also be needing ng-for because I might need to iterate through different items on my HTML, so that's why I have imported ng-for. And here in the imports, I'm going to add ng-for and reactive forms module. All right, so let's save this file. And now inside this component, first of all, I'm gonna be creating user form of type form group. All right, so currently it is giving me some kind of warning that has no initializer definitely assigned. So I'm just adding this particular character and it will make this optional, you can say, or I can assign it some kind of value to it, but I don't want to assign any value to it. All right, so now I will be writing constructor and I will create form builder of type form builder. Okay, and form builder is one of the important class that we can use to build the form, and this process is going to be called the reactive form. And I'm using the tab 9 AI assistant extension of VS Code. It is suggesting me few things, but I'm not going to add its suggestion over here, although it is giving me correct information which is related to reactive forms. So let's manually create that reactive form. So first of all, I will be creating a user form equals to, and then I will be using form builder. And for creating reactive form, I need to wrap all of the attributes of this form within the form group. Okay, so form builder have these function, you can say, that we can use to pass some data. So first value I'm going to add is the name, and then the default value is going to be empty, and then whether this value is required or not, I can use the validators which I've already imported above equals to required. So now if I don't pass any value to this name property, then it will throw some kind of error. All right, and then let's give it an email, and this is going to be an array, and default value is going to be empty, and then this is going to be required, and then I will also be needing, let's say, so let's wrap everything within another array, this one like this. All right, I need to provide the format of email, that what email format it should expect. Okay, so this is going to be like this. All right, so here in this array I will be needing validators dot pattern, and inside it I can pass regex. We can Google regex for the email, or we can simply ask ChatGPT and they will generate the regex for validating the email. So inside it I'm simply going to add this value. It is going to validate whether the email we have entered is correct or not. Okay, so after that we can add another property address, and this is going to be another group. So this is a nested group. Address can contain multiple input elements. It can contain street number, it can contain house number, it can contain your district, your city name. So all of these can have the different drop downs, different input text boxes, maybe the check boxes. So I'm creating the nested group within this form builder which I've already created. So now I can use form builder dot group, and it is going to take that object again, and let's give it couple of values, and like this, validators required. Okay, and then I can pass city, validators dot required. All right, so I need to create another property for the phone numbers. A person can have more than one phone number, so user should be able to add one phone number, or user should be able to add 10 phone numbers. So for that I will be using then array for the form builder. But before that, I'm going to add and show all of these values, name, email, and address in my HTML. Okay, so here in the HTML, I'm going to start off with a form, and this form is going to have let's give it a default style. I'm going to add a padding. Just ignore the styling. This tutorial is only for learning reactive forms. Just ignore the styling. I'm not going to style this form in any way. I'm just explaining you the core technical concepts which are included in the reactive forms. So now I need to use this particular keyword form group, and then I need to provide it the variable name which I have created in my component, and this is the user form. Okay, and then this whole form can take the ng submit, and it is going to take the submit form function which I yet need to create. So here I'm gonna go inside this component, and I can create this particular function below this constructor. Yes, this is where the constructor is ending. So I can use the submit form, and I can check if user.form is valid. Yes, like this. Then I'm simply going to log the values. So user form dot value. All right. So now error is gone, and let's come back to this HTML file, and now let's proceed and bind over input text boxes with all of these three different attributes for this user form. So inside this form, I'm going to add a div. Let's start off with a div, and inside this div, let's give it a label, and label is for, and tab 9 AI assistant I think is suggesting me something cool. So I'm going to click on the tab button on my keyboard. Okay, and let me see what it has written. So this is the label for name. This is right, and then this is going to be an input of type text, id, name. This is the required. I don't need to add required here because I'm going to bind that with the name, since I have wrapped this div with this form group and then the user form. This is over here, and this is automatically going to manage the required attribute for this input field. Okay, so form control name is an important attribute. This is relevant to the reactive form, and the value that I've given to the form control name should match the value of the attribute which I write over here. All right, in order to have all of these settings we have for this particular attribute. All right, so finally I can have the placeholder. It's up to you if you want to add so name. All right, so once that is done, I'm simply going to copy this whole div, and I'm going to change everything from name to email. So this is going to be id, email, and here email here, and email here as well. So let me see. So this is for this particular input, email, and type is text. ID is going to be the email, name equals to the email, placeholder email, and this form control name is this email. So let's go and verify this is the email, and yes. So for this particular div, I'm going to copy this, but before copying this, I'm going to add a div manually. And for this whole div, this is going to contain label and input like this. Let me copy this. Okay, so for this particular thing, you can see over here I have this property address, and this address have further two properties, street and then the city. So I can have this street, and for this text I can again update with the street. All right, like this. Okay, and let's copy this label and input, not the div over here. So now I can have the city and then the city. So for the type, I will keep it text. For the name, city, this is the city. Let's copy this city, and I'm going to add both of these city over here. All right, so in the terminal, it is showing some kind of error that cannot find control with the name street, because this particular property is not directly added within this form builder group, because this whole div is wrapped within this form group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another attribute to this div, because this div is containing two input elements that have the form control name attribute. So I'm going to use form group name. Okay, so this is going to be equals to address. So let's save it. Let's go below, and now you can see that the error is gone, because now it is finding the street and the city properties from here. All right, so finally I'm going to add a div outside this div. Before start working on the submission with the phone numbers, I'm going to start off writing this thing, button type submit, and then it is actually validating the disabled property. If user is invalid, then this is going to be disabled. If only, this is going to be enabled when the whole form is going to be is going to contain proper correct values. Okay, so let's go over here, ignore the UI actually. So this is not showing any kind of UI, so let me save it. Let's go over here. Yes, now you can see that it is disabled, because here I have given these particular settings that the name should not be empty, email should not be empty, and should follow this pattern, and also both of these properties should not be empty as well. So let me start writing the name, and then let's give it street like this, and let's give some email. And now you can see that this particular button have been enabled, and if I remove any of these, because all of these attributes are required, so you can see that this is disabled. So only one attribute valid can actually take up all of these settings, and based upon this particular property we can enable, disable, or anything else. We can use this particular condition to apply some styling colors in any of the attributes. And now once I'm successfully add some values inside this form, we can go over here and I can try if values are logged or not. So let me inspect over here, console, and click on the submit. No thanks. And now you can see that it has printed out these addresses. Okay, and city Lahore and all of these values, and this is where we can perform some kind of APIs if we want to. So, and it is also checking if the form is valid or not. So just like the HTML, we can also validate if the form is valid or not in this component as well. All right, so now I hope that you have understood how we can start off creating form builder group and nested form builder group. Now let's talk about form builder array. So here below the address attribute, I'm going to create a new property for this user form, and this is going to be the phone number. So one user can have more than one phone numbers. So I'm not going to create multiple inputs in my HTML manually, that let's say user have 2 phone numbers or 5 or 10 phone numbers. It's the user who should be creating the input text boxes by clicking on add new text box, and it's going to show up over here, or removing any particular text box. Okay, so now I'm going to use this dot form builder, not the group, but this also provides array. Okay, and rather than creating object, I'm going to be using this square brackets, and inside it I can use form builder. I can have a group, or I can have a control here as well, because I want to create the text box. And here I'm going to use validators dot required, and this tab 9 AI assistant suggesting me this, which is fine. Validators dot required, validators dot pattern. So we can have our own pattern, but I can go with that. This is just making sure that the phone number should have all the digits, and should have the total number of digits equals to 10. All right, so now outside this particular constructor, I can actually use wow. So tab 9 is giving me what I'm thinking currently. So I can have getter for the phone numbers, and this function is going to return me all the phone numbers which are currently added. I can use this function to return all the phone numbers which are added in this array, to iterate through and show it in the UI. Okay, so this is how beneficial this particular getter function is. I can use this in this particular component as well in another function, or I can use it in my HTML. So before going to the HTML, let's try to create a function for adding a new phone number. Okay, so add phone number, and here I can use that getter function above. All right, so it is suggesting me a few things. Let's use that. So this dot phone numbers dot push, yes, this is fine. And then I'm pushing a new control. This is fine as well. And this is the array for this particular control. Okay, this is the validator true, validator pattern, and this is going to be pushed in this phone number because we have already defined that it should be an array. All right, so now I'm gonna go and create a new function. So remove phone number, let's see what it gives. All right, let's press tab, and now we need to pass the index from the HTML, and then we can remove a particular phone number that will be added at a particular index for this array, which is going to be returned from this getter function. All right, so I hope there is no error in this particular file. So let's come over here. So below all of these text boxes, I'm going to show up all of the phone number text boxes which needs to be added within that form. All right, so in this HTML, I'm going to start off with creating a div, and this div is going to have form array name. This is an attribute that we need to create, and then we need to write the phone numbers. This is referring to this getter function which we created in the component. And now let's use static ng4 to iterate through all of the phone numbers. And now let's write equals to let phone num of phone numbers, and phone numbers, actually this phone numbers is returning as a form array, but I want to get its control property. So controls, All right, and we can get the index as well from the index attribute, because for deletion of a particular text box we would need this particular index. All right, so now let's add a label. Let's add the phone number, and after that we can show how many phone numbers are added currently by writing this. And now I can have an input type text form control name. So type equals to text and form control name equals to, what we can do is we need to give it some dynamic value to it. All right, but for giving dynamic value, one thing we can do is we can wrap all of these attribute within this square brackets, and as its value we can pass I. Okay, because I is not going to be same for all of these values, it's always going to be incremented. Okay, so let's go over here, and then what we can do is for after every input text box we can have type equals to button, and then this is going to have this click and remove phone number I, which is going to be passed to that function. Remove phone number, yes, and then I hope that it is going to remove particular text box. But before testing that, let me save it and see if it is showing anything currently, and you can see that it is showing phone number 1 with the text box and the remove. But before testing that, let me create another div, and here I can select this from tab 9, button, type button, add phone number, and add a phone number. Yes, I hope that it's going to work. So let's go over here, and let's say user have entered some kind of name, email, uh, let's write this Lahore. Button is still disabled because phone number is also a part of that form, and this should not be invalid or empty. But if I write something invalid, still it's going to get empty, but I need to write, I think, at least 10 digits. All right, I've written 10 digits. Now the phone number is correct, everything is correct. Now this is enabled, so validation is working fine for this phone number as well. Add another phone number, and now this new attribute is going to be added for the phone number 2, and button is again disabled because this is becoming the part of that form, so I can add another property. All right, so add another phone number, this is disabled, but I want to remove the third phone number attribute and see if button gets enabled, because all of the previous values have been filled already. So remove, and now you can see that this has been removed, and we are able to see as much input text boxes as we want, and it's up to user whether they want to add it or not, and this is automatically becoming the part of that form. Okay, so let me remove all of these. All right, and if I click on the submit, and let me see what gives here. So name, email, address, which is correct, and you can see that the form is building like an JSON object, like this is an object, and we have the again key value pairs within that object, and for the array this is creating an array of the strings for that value. All right, so this is how the reactive forms work in Angular. I hope that you have got an idea how we can construct that, how we can use form builder, group, array, and form control properties and bind that within the HTML. So in the next video, I will talk about components communication. This is also a very important topic. Up till now, if you have understood something new, do subscribe my channel and like my video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video.